Hi Lauren, this is Mark Beam. I am an animator at PDI DreamWorks on Madagascar 2 right now. I worked on Shrek the Third and Shrek the Halls. Before that, I was at DNA working on the Ant Bully, and before that at Blue Sky Studios working on robots. I want to say congrats on this round. Very nice piece, very strong work, really fun characters, nice reserved animation, not overly animated, great solidity and control over your volumes, nice attention to details and things like the ears reflecting his attitude and his scarf flowing. And so just really nice work overall. I have very little to say mechanically about your animation. I'm going to get into a little bit here and there of some clarity issues and maybe communicating some of the emotions of your characters a little stronger, a little more clearly. Let's put it that way. So let's get started. Let's play the whole thing. Remind everybody.
Merry Christmas, Mrs. Munchnick.
A fruitcake.
Yes.
Remark?
Merry Christmas.
All right, cool. So, right off the bat, I just wanted to get into a tiny bit here. When he's delivering his main thrust of the package, I thought it might be nice to activate this side of the body a little bit more, get a little tiny bit more opposite action here with this hand. You know, not a whole lot, just something to show a little bit of movement so that this isn't locked off. We certainly don't want, to attract the eye over here. I just want to sort of make the connection that, the brain is firing this stuff off and it's not just a drawing here. A very small note, just drafting-wise, is between these two frames here, I noticed the package seemed to grow significantly. You always have changes like that, but everything in your shot is so solid. You've tied it down so nicely and cleaned it all up. I would just grow this package a little bit more here, even if you have to spread this hand out to compensate, so that you keep the volume a little stronger here. From time to time, things in this short in general have a bit of a linear feel to them, and I don't so much mind that as long as you don't overdo it. Like right here, you have a peak that comes down here, and then at the very end, I'll go back here and show. You have sort of a direct, I think there's a couple frames that come out in a little linear accent. I would just watch the sharper corners here. Probably this one, even more than this one. This accent you can kind of roll through, maybe bump this frame up here, or this key. Yeah, I would say, if you tighten your spacing on this one up here and get it up a little more, you'll just round off that corner just a bit. And, even a little drag right in this linear area will help with that. Just a little drag on this side of the package of the fruitcake. But that stuff is all pretty small. I wanted to talk about right now what Tom wants and what he's feeling at this moment. I felt it was a little ambiguous here, and we never really want to have it where the audience doesn't know what the character's feeling, or it's not coming across, even if it's subtle. Right now I'm reading a bit of like a hopeful, like trying to get this past, like I'm just trying to make this work. But I want to, you should be able to ask, you should be able to at least answer, is he embarrassed about this? It's clear that he's regifted this. I mean, he's switched the to and from in your insert. So does he know how lame this is, and he's just trying to get away with it? or at this moment has he decided, like, when I'm face to face with this person, I have to give them a gift. Now does it hit me like, oh man, I really should have bought a better gift, you know? If so, I think I would really highlight that and have that moment of hesitation, both in his action and his face of, it's too late now, I have to give this anyway. Here I am, and I'm giving it, I find myself giving it to her. You know, really to clarify, and it really would make a stronger moment for him, what he's about, what the subtext is here, what's the actual dialogue in his head. And I would always challenge you to write that down. Don't just try to munch through it with some nicely done animation. Force yourself to write it out, and if it comes, you know, the more you are thinking about it, the more that subtext is clear to you, the more it's going to communicate, and the stronger the character moment is going to be for him. Let's go to the next shot. This is nice. My favorite part of this shot is kind of mist. You know, it's a bit mist. We're framed out a little bit for it, which is, I think, okay. We could still make this work. We're still moving quite a bit when it happens, and you know, the pencil's boiling around. But her eyebrows go in just a little bit in this subtle little frown of understanding. I thought that was a really nice moment of, you know, it was like gave her pause and, wait, you know, it's the moment where she figures out this is the fruitcake she gave him last year. I would really like to see that highlighted. It's so fast and so subtle now that we kind of miss it. It would really have to be at a moment where nothing else is moving, and even your pencil work is really careful and clean. Like, if there was ever a moment in the short, or in this piece, to take your time and make sure all the line weights are the same, and, you know, it's super clean, it's at this moment, so that we see that contrast. And in fact, I would set it up so that before it happens, it's, you know, we take a little more innocent track on the brows, so that they're slightly up, so that we can see them in, say, that next key coming in. So we see the, you know, and even, you know, possibly some tightening down in this area. Not a lot, but just, you know, a subtle, you know, the width of a pencil line in. And really hold on that, you know. It would have to be when she's already received the package, you know, her hold is pretty much done moving. Then it happens, and then we can cut. This sort of brings me to the next point, is I wonder if this shot is really necessary, and if it's really the best way to go about selling this joke. Because that's what we're doing right here, is we're blowing the joke. Not blowing it, but we're delivering the punchline now. And then we have this whole rest to go through. I'm wondering if we save this a little bit, the actual explanation of the joke. And, you know, it's always better to sort of show it rather than tell it, and this is telling it. So what if you, instead, you know, you had that little moment of her, let me draw this in black, of understanding, and instead of cutting away, we have this little moment where she simply looks up with her eyes, maybe a little bit with the brows, you know, you'd have to play with that. Where the only thing that really moves are her pupils, and she's got this sort of like, seriously moment going on, where like, a fruitcake? You know, really? You gave me a fruitcake? Which is sort of a funny bit in itself, but it doesn't give away our joke. That sort of displays why he would be, in this shot, a little nervous or embarrassed, or, you know, it's when I'm moving on to this shot, I'm sort of like, I've got the same issues with it, is that I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to communicate. It's like, I see like anxiety and embarrassment and, yeah, kind of, but it would, the shot before of her accusing gaze would give him reason for this moment. But I also think you really need to focus on, again, what's the subtext of this? I think mostly, like, it's in this first take or this antic up here that I don't get. That, to me, is the more ambiguous, the most ambiguous part of this shot. I also think you're trying to pack a lot into this shot. I think that this is sort of, uh-oh, I'm caught. And then this is maybe, I don't think it's just a mechanical anticipation for the next sigh of giving up, but I think it's almost like, is there a way out? It's almost like calculating a way out. While he's still embarrassed, is there... And then he deflates and gives up and admits. And then at the very end, he looks for, is it still okay? Do you still love me? Kind of like this little sheepish look. I think this is the strongest attitude in the whole shot. I think really like this is the most unnecessary and the most ambiguous. So I'd probably just cut it and go for less. This really reminds me of a shot from Emperor's New Groove where Yzma is yelling at some poor peasant right before we introduce the main character. I can't remember right now. Anyway, this peasant is, trying to ask for like land or food or something. He's petitioning her, and she's going like, la 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 la, what is it that you want that's so important? And the guy goes like, food. And it's like this great little moment where it's a one-word response, and it really reminded me of this because it goes through the same kinds of emotions. And something that triggered in my head was there's a nice little sequence of overlaps in that. Maybe it's a little overdone for your piece here, but I'm wondering if you can echo his attitude in his cap. So that if he goes down like this, he's deflating, he also deflate the cap in both in volume here, but also drag it a little bit and float it over his head so that it drags behind his motion and overlaps into his forehead. Again, just like you're doing with the ears, just echoing in everything the attitude, trying to get the attitude in every line of your drawing. But overall, I think too many things to say probably in that shot. It'd be better to have one or two really clear attitudes on him. Great shot. This is my favorite shot, and this is what I felt was the true punchline, and what I wanted to kind of save it for was to now deliver that this is what I gave you, now you're giving it back to me kind of thing. Clearly you hated this gift enough to not open it.
Remarkably like the one I gave you last year.
So for this, the only thing, one mechanical thing is I noticed like your drawings are so tight, and you're so on model. I kind of wish that sometimes her nose, not so much his, her nose had a little bit of flexibility. And I would say, you could keep this bridge pretty solid, but if sometimes you could stretch this a bit, and I'm not talking about a lot, but just a little bit with some of her wider consonants or wider vowels, or her wider stretches, just to get a little more plasticity right in that area. Because this is nice and chewy and doughy, but this tends to be locked off, it's like all bone. And it's fine if like this part's bone, But I'd really like to see, that part stretching around a little bit on her, especially with the old woman. She's a little softer. Something to think about.
Remarkably like...
Also, when she's going into remarkably, I think that's a point for her to really accent. This is a point where they, have sort of changed stations in that he's giving her a gift. Maybe it's not so much the change, but she's really gained in power here on this shot. And I think her being in control and being superior at this point, without really rubbing it in his face too much, too overtly, is a stance you want to take. When she says, remarkably, she's overdoing it, she's going over the top. Like this, it really looks like the same fruitcake I gave you, text-wise. Like, I know what's going on here, and have that control reflected in everything in her face. You really have an excellent start here.
Remarkably.
But the remarkably, I think you could get a little brow and eye thing on the remarkably. It's just the remarkably, this is you can have the eyes almost closed, like she's not really looking at it. And then she can open the eyes again as she looks down. So, it's sort of a long blink with her eyes down here. And the brows, in the up and knowing. Old sage kind of pose. That's, says a lot about her control over the situation. This is the point where she's going to move a lot slower and move under more control and of the situation, of the fruitcake. She's inspecting it and saying, no, that's very interesting that, that I might know this, that you did this. And
Remarkably like the one I...
And when you say remarkably, after the remarkably, your accent of the brows coming open or at least brows coming up or eyes closed, you really can play with it as long as it's an accent. To come down, maybe even a little more heavy-lidded here. She looks a little, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little nice at this point. And I think it's good that she doesn't go over the top and just flat out accuse him, and she's not staring at him like accusingly. I think that's a really strong, because that just shows her control even more. But I think a little bit more on the heavy-lidded, somewhere between here and here. Yeah, just a hair more weight on this, and maybe even tilted just a hair more in, just for control. I would really play with that line and try to really get that face nailed, because it says a lot about her control over the situation.
Remarkably like the one I gave you last year.
And as she looks up, this again is just a hair more innocent than I would probably want to go on this. That she, I think we want to show that she is a little more in control of this situation than, and he's starting to realize, or he should be starting to realize. I Dropping the pupils just a hair down. Being careful with the worry lines. This little tiny slant up might work against you. It's okay for an accent, but I think if I was going to do it, it would probably be reserved for the brow. You might even be able to play a little with the lower lids. I don't think you have to do that, actually, on second thought. I was going to go, you see how I put a little bit of cheek in there? Maybe that's a little overstated. But hopefully you get the idea of what I'm trying to say, is like putting her a little more in control. I meant to drop a little lid, little upper lid in there to be a little less looking up like puppy dog, a little more, I know what's going on here. Please don't think you're fooling me. But just a little. And I think you can creep that into probably both eyelids. Just to show a little bit of that upper lid. That is really all I have to say. Like I said, this piece made me happy. A little more clarity, and maybe saving that joke for the end. And it's a really nice one. So congrats again, and I hope to see more of your stuff out there. I'll be looking for your name. That's all.